up there. Oh, it's Donna Brazil. She reminds me of my Raquel. I think she looks gorgeous with the white hair. It looks beautiful. And her nose and her lips. I always get, wow, she reminds me of Raquel when I was young. And I get that, what's her name? Dionne Warwick. Sometimes I tell myself I'm leaving, and I'd like to think I could really go. But it's just myself that I'm deceiving. Because deep inside, and feeling old feelings again. And after you, who could there be? I go through PTSD. It's like, shit. I hate that shit. But then she starts talking, and she sounds like Barack Obama, and it's like, oh, okay. She was pretty. I was thinking, you're sitting there thinking, I'm thinking Ella Fitzgerald songs, Nancy Wilson songs, and then she starts talking, and I'm like, what are you doing? Sitting alone in this office chair trying to convince quantum computing to be intelligent? What the fuck you doing? Ivan and Pirel, she has it's a Mexica name. It was cute because she was like, what? And her husband said Mexican. Because I said, is it Nahuatl? And she goes, what? What's that? And I said, Nahuatl, that's a Mexica name. And she goes, what? A Mexican name. And because I always have to explain to people, there's Mexican, okay, and there's Spanish. I found that out from a man named Frank Chavez, who my mom worked for. He's a judge. He was a judge. I don't know if he is anymore. In Doñana County, and a lawyer. He was a lawyer when my mother worked for him as his legal secretary. They lived next to a Mexican family. This guy Jeff and his sisters were so cute, right? Dark brown, big brown eyes. And they saw me playing in the treehouse with Rand, and Jeff came over, and I said, okay, Jeff, let them all come over and play. No, we don't hang out with them. I was like, what? Frank, they were Mexican. Frank was Spanish and married to a white lady. I didn't get it. I'm like, but they're Mexicans. But you're Mexican. He never said that. He just, no, we don't play. I was like, and then later, and then Frank Chavez is the same way about the Conways across the street because they were Krauts, Germans. He was bigoted against I was like, damn, Frank Chavez, your family was the ones that when they came and colonized in colonial Spain, in the Americas, the Hidalgo, no, the Pincelares, the Hidalgo, the Negro, the Zapotec, no, it's Negros, right, Zapotec and then Negro, Cerro. Me and the other brother talked about that because he was Azteca. He's from Veracruz, and you could see it in him. It's like, wow, you're very Aztec. Oh my gosh, big. He's about 6'3", solid brick shit muscle, tattoo across there, strong Roman nose, wide jaw, steely black eyes. Don't fuck with my kids. We'll be good friends. Just don't come. He was gorgeous. He was a strong man. He could hold a good conversation. He was kind. He really loved his kids. Like, yeah, I was like, I like him. All right, that's a guy I could have as a linebacker on my football team, right? I like him. So I'm sitting there, but Ivan and his wife, I sat there and I was walking out of the store and I was walking back in. And I got the little voices in my head when I go to the store because of all the Wi-Fi. And I left these people and I was talking. I said, okay, I don't like to make people uncomfortable. And they're like, bullshit. Just about everybody you talk to, they get uncomfortable. And I'm like, no, that's not true. No. It's not me, it's you. They all have cell phones. I'm the living embodiment of the Lord's Prayer. What happened to the living embodiment of the Lord's Prayer in the Roman Empire? He got crucified, Earl. Thank you, Irwin. What happened to all the people that followed the living embodiment of they also were crucified. What else? They were put into the Colosseum and devoured by lions at halftime, right? Okay, so they're not afraid or uncomfortable by me. They're uncomfortable by you. And we was living the Lord's Prayer, like I told Ivan and his beautiful wife, if and we was living the Lord's Prayer, okay, we may not be having this conversation because we wouldn't need to. Because we wouldn't be here right now. We wouldn't be shopping. We'd be loving. We'd be living the heart of Psalms and the seat of Proverbs. Beach, I was gonna kick their ass right when I got home, but I was tired, and I hadn't eaten. So I sat down and ate. Then I made some connections with the electronics, and I sat, And every time I go to the store, I get this connection to this woman who's like the biggest nag on the planet. And I'm pretty sure the accountant is like, here, shut up. It's like, she's the nag. Oh gosh, she's a nag. She's like Joey Bishop's wife, you know. The reason why men die sooner than women is internal bleeding, because women are like, when are you going to get with the program? And I don't think it's vicious. No, I think it's like my mom. My mom, Earl, you can't do that. All the bitches will kill you. You know. And I think with women, like when I talked to Melissa, she was so sweet. She reminded me of Emily. She was so sweet. She's a hospice nurse, right? And she kept telling me, you got to be positive, but they're never going to give us the Lord's Prayer. They're never going to let us live the Lord's Prayer. We're never going to do it. I was like, oh, but you just said we got to be positive. She goes, well, I love my job. It completes me. I said, no. No. And I told her, I was kind of like, no, in the future, you're not going to do that anymore. Because we're not going to have extortion, exploitation. We're going to be living the Lord's Prayer. People won't be living next to the freeway, dying from carbon emission poisons and entire particles, and then you're in the hospice listening to their beautiful stories before passing while giving them morphine to make it more comfortable. Because she stepped up to me and said, I'm very sorry. I said, oh, it was 1994. I've come to terms with it now. It was just to get the Rockefeller Foundation trying to get me to feel like my mother was a victim, my dad was a perp, and to hate my father. That's why they did it. Okay, my mom, if they had done things right with her health care, could have lived lots longer, maybe even be alive today. Because Queen Elizabeth had the same conditions and lived to be 100 and what? You know, Harry's and Willem's mother, and grandma. Oh, their mother was murdered. Okay, like my mom. Yeah, I was getting Megan's kids. Okay, the other night when I watched Entertainment Tonight, the other night they're charming. They're very charming. And I was saying some cute little British sayings and songs. It was absolutely charming. And I was like, oh my gosh, your kids are absolutely charming. You didn't say anything? At the time I felt, I'm being head fucked. And I felt that way when I left the store about Mrs. Nag. Right? I was like, I'm being head fucked. And I was 4 years old when I did the Doris Day, and I asked Jesus, when will I be handsome like my dad and my uncle? Will I be rich? Here's what he said to me. He didn't say that. He said, you're going to do well. You're going to be a good person, and you're going to be very, he just told me a lot of things. You're going to be this. You're a very important person to the world. You're going to look like a lot cross between your dad and your Uncle James. It's like, that's cool because they both have really nice and pretty wives. And Uncle Jimmy's got, Aunt Bernice. She's part Mexican. She's pretty, right? It's, okay, that's cool. So I thought to myself, what would my life look? And I saw somebody that looked a lot like Devon DeCarlo, but she had this, like Lilith Munster. She had this streak of gray in her hair, a streak. So I'm like, it's not Jennifer Lopez. Why? Because she don't have that streak of gray in her hair. I'm gray. I'm gray. So I'm like, it's not Jennifer Lopez. Okay. But the Temple Set Illuminati had me believe that one day she'd be my, like Philip with Maleficent and And when we went to Sierra Vista and all these horrible things were happening to me, they'd happened to me my whole life. I was this big biblical abusive clusterfuck of bureaucracy and insanity that just never stopped. It was just, there was a couple of times in Sheridan when a Navy SEAL was having all the guys sexually abuse my wife who was vulnerable and trying to get her not to go fall into the stuff and not fall into that kind of stuff. And it looked like she was going to get the kids and I wasn't going to get the kids like what happened to my son Patrick. I thought, I just can't go through that again. And I contemplated driving under semi-trucks and saying, no, my luck, I would live through it. And the guy driving the semi-truck's a nice guy and got kids at home and I'd kill him. Because I think like that. And then, I thought about walking in front of those, all those in Cochise County, all those Fast and the Furious nitroglycerin cars, wannabes going down Highway 90 and 92 on my way walking to work. I said, no, with my luck, they'll hit me, I'll fall up, end up in a wheelchair and lose the kids and then sit and have to watch it from a wheelchair. So fuck that shit, What about making the kid feel, yeah, he's got nitroglycerin. He thinks he's fucking Paul Walker and Tyree Gibson and it's all that, and the Rock Johnson and Vin Diesel. Fuck that shit, right? So I know what it's like to feel absolutely hopeless and lose everything that you're attached to, that you care about. And feel hopeless, like I'm just going to kill myself because they're going to torture me and I can't live this way, right? And then they ended up doing it anyway. They ended up taking my kids away. But when I went to Sierra Vista, they exposed themselves to me. They told me, they didn't tell me straight up, but can you figure this out? It's like, you don't have to figure it out. I just wasn't paying attention because it's not my job. Jesus told me just be a good person. And when he needs me, do your job. What's my job? Living embodiment of the Lord's Prayer. I am the Messiah. Okay, do your job. So, hey, my job. This is my job. Okay, like Carlos Mencio's brother, So I did my job, but, when this all happened during the Obama administration, by 2013, when everything was done, and I see how they get excited and wanting to win their elections and how they get the dopamine and adrenaline rush and stuff, and that feels exciting, but it doesn't last. Like Robin Williams says, like Loon in the Oscar, you go home and there's still homelessness and there's still abuse and there's still murder and there's still crime and manipulation because of economics, and you go, fuck, it's never going to end. You feel like Melissa said, it's never going to end. And I can't tell you, I think when I thought that was going to culminate and I was going to end up in a relationship with Jennifer Lopez, I wanted that more than anything in the world, because I knew if that happened, I'm the Messiah and everybody would know who I was. And so I wouldn't just be with the girl of my dreams, but I would also be living the Lord's Prayer in the kingdom of heaven with the girl of my dreams. And it didn't happen. And now these sick scientists and all these people that mind fuck us with Wi-Fi to keep abusing us and make everybody feel there's no hope. Jesus is just a charismatic cult leader. The guy Earl, who's just like him, is a charismatic cult leader. All you people that are just not working hard enough on science and sexy enough to fight and fuck over the science projects, just lay down and die. Okay. You know what I have to say to that? Paige from Saskatchewan. She let me know. She didn't say hardly anything. When I got done and saying, I'd like, hopefully we'll meet at a barbecue. Because I know we're going to meet at a barbecue. You guys all show up and bring your best stuff and we'll bring ours. Because when you go up to a cow, you don't ask a cow, could you please just lay down? I'm going to tie you up and then get you ready for you to. No, you don't let a cow tell you what to do. You tell the cow what you're doing. Okay? You tell the horse, we're going to do this because we got to get it done. Because the little kids got to eat and grandma's got to eat. Right? Okay? You ever been riding in Saskatchewan? You got to get your job done, especially when it's cold. Okay? A cowgirl from Saskatchewan comes from a family that don't take, static, don't start none, won't be none. Okay? So when I say get something done and I'm right and I'm good and I'm truthful and you're wrong, you're bad and you're a liar, you better get it done. Okay? That was cool. She was cool. I met so many people cool at the store. I was not going to talk. And then they're like, okay, we'll see if anybody talks to you. No, fuck that. That's what I told Owen and his beautiful wife. No, because if I do that, they're not going to talk to me because they're afraid of you and your fucking your big brother's watching on your phone, right? So I said, fuck that. I'm going to talk to these people. I love these people. They're like me. They're being abused by technology and money. So I'm going to talk to the people, walk through the country, and then freedom. We're not going to cry it. And the beautiful mom at the checkout line, I said, she's so pretty. And she reminded me of all the beautiful Mexican women I grew up with and think, okay, I love you guys. Peace.